Welcome back to Figuring It Out. I'm Rachel Lee, and if this is your first time listening, I'm so glad you're here. And if you've ever felt like you're growing, healing, stumbling, and getting back up all at the same time, you're in the right place. Before we dive into today's conversation, I want to offer this. If something in this conversation resonates, if it makes you feel seen or helps you name something you've been carrying, take a second to follow the show, leave a review, or share it with someone who might need this reminder too. That's how this work reaches the people who need it most. All right, so without further ado, let's get into it. Today we're going to talk about worth. And this is something I've had to remind myself of this more times than I can count. I am worth it. Not later, not once I've healed, not once I've earned it, not once I'm less messy, right now, as I am. And I want to say this clearly and maybe give some insight to others, because just because you know your worth in your head, it doesn't mean you live from it in your body. For a long time, I knew I was worth it, but I didn't act like it. I didn't speak up like it. I didn't protect my time like it. And I didn't love myself like it. And there's a massive difference between believing something intellectually and embodying it day to day. Here's something I learned. Worth isn't just about relationships. I used to think conversations about self-worth were mostly about dating, like romantic relationships. Who chooses you? Who stays? But when I actually slowed down and looked at my life, that's not where the cracks were showing. It was in friendships where I shrank to fit, work meetings where I smiled and said, "No worries," when there were very real worries, family dynamics where I over-explained my boundaries, trying to make them digestible, trying to be palatable. And the part I don't think I fully realized until way later was that I muted myself in a lot of those dynamics. I didn't speak up. I didn't name what I really wanted. I just went along with it, kept the peace, smiled, nodded. Now, if you've ever known me in a different setting, if you will, maybe you saw me boisterous, maybe you saw me interacting, right? But that doesn't mean that I knew my worth well enough to make sure things actually landed the way they needed to. And there were so many moments growing up, holidays, trips, plans, where I knew I didn't want to do what we were doing, but I didn't say anything. Because back then, other people's comfort mattered more than my own clarity. And now, because that dynamic never made space for what I wanted, my kids and I don't have these perfect, polished traditions when it comes to the holidays. We don't do the same things every year because we were always doing someone else's tradition. And I want to say that I'm not saying that with bitterness, but let me be honest with you. There is a little bit of bitterness, but that's real. It's one of those quiet griefs that comes with unlearning a whole bunch of shit that I wish I never learned. And once I started spotting that pattern, I couldn't unsee it, even though I didn't yet know how to stop it. And here's the truth about that. Awareness is step one, but it's not a magic fix. There was a very long stretch of time where I had clarity, but no energy. I could name the pattern, but I couldn't break it. So I did what I had to do. I showed up, I worked, I fed my kids, I got through the day. But I wasn't really living, I was performing. And it all didn't necessarily crush me, but it definitely changed me. There's a quiet kind of resilience that doesn't get enough credit here. And that's the kind that shows up even when the clarity hasn't turned into confidence yet. And that kind of strength, it still counts. A while ago, I was in a meeting where decision had apparently already been made. You know, you could feel it in the air that that's where we were headed, right? So someone then said, "What do you think? Do you have anything?" And I almost didn't say what I was going to say. I almost smiled, nodded, played it safe, and just stayed agreeable. But I didn't. I said, "Actually, I disagree." I explained why. We talked it through. No one freaked out. No one rolled their eyes. No one shut me down. And the world didn't crumble. And even though it didn't go my way, the simple thought that someone asked, and I simply said, it's worth asking the question. It may not have been a huge moment, but I didn't betray myself to keep the peace. And that's what worth looks like sometimes. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's grounded. It's choosing yourself in the room, even when it would be easier not to. And here's another part that we don't necessarily talk about enough. Worth isn't just what you start doing. It's what you stop doing. I don't over-explain anymore. Chase people who are half in. Share vulnerability just to feel a connection. Perform calm when I'm not. Force myself to stay in rooms where my nervous system is screaming to leave. That used to take work. Now it's just my baseline. Not because I'm healed or I'm invincible, but because I've built trust with myself. And self-trust can rewire everything. Before we wrap up, I want to speak to the version of you that's maybe still in it. Still in the middle, still in the mess, still figuring out what worth even looks like on you. Because I know what it's like to be the person doing the work. Listening to the podcasts, reading the books, naming the patterns, and still feeling like nothing is changing fast enough. Let me say this, and please hear me when I say this to you. Recognizing your worth doesn't always feel like fireworks. Sometimes it feels like making lunch when you're exhausted. Sometimes it feels like not texting back when someone disrespects your time. Sometimes it's turning off your phone and going to bed early because you finally believe that rest isn't earned. It's deserved. It's small, it's quiet, but it counts. You don't have to prove your worth. You just have to stop acting like it's up for debate. And if you're thinking, yeah, Rachel, easier said than done. I still mess up. I still forget. I still go back to my old habits. Plot twist, so do I. This isn't a linear thing. It's layered. It's lived in. It's that try again kind of thing. You don't need to do it perfectly. You just need to keep coming back to the truth of who you are. And while we're here, I want to be honest about something else. Sometimes knowing your worth doesn't mean walking away. It doesn't mean you burn it all down. It doesn't mean you ditch every relationship that ever made you question yourself. Sometimes knowing your worth just means getting really honest internally. Without making a big announcement, without explaining yourself to anyone, without taking a poll or asking for approval. It means noticing how something makes you feel, noticing what version of you is showing up, and choosing whether or not that gets to continue. Without outside pressure, without performance. I have relationships I'm still figuring out. Situations where my old patterns will still try to sneak in. Moments where I wonder if I'm being brave or just familiar. But I don't owe anyone a press release about what I'm navigating. And neither do you. Sometimes the most powerful proof of self-worth is what you don't explain, what you protect, what you keep sacred. If you've been questioning your worth in your relationships, in your family, at work, or shit, even in the mirror, I want you to hear this clearly. Your worth is not up for debate. It doesn't need to be proven. It doesn't need to be earned. And it doesn't expire. You get to take up space right now as you are. If this episode gave you something to think about, if it helped put words to something you've been feeling, follow the podcast, leave a review, or send this to someone who's been feeling small lately. You never know. This might be the reminder they've been waiting for. Thank you for being here. I'll see you next time as we keep figuring it out.